Okay, so the point of this is actually to figure out how to write and solve a system of linear equations in context. So whenever you are using these three methods that we have in this unit, either graphing, substitution, or elimination, your goal is to write out a system of equations and solve them in context. So contextual problems are normally word problems. So it could be a case where you have to extrapolate information from a graph or from an equation that's already given, but most of the time when you're solving an equation in context with linear equations like what this says, right, solve a system of linear equations, you're going to need to set it up. So here's what we're dealing with. It says you are running a concession stand at a basketball game. You are selling hot dogs and sodas. So each hot dog costs $1.50 and each soda costs $50, 50 cents. So that's 50 cents, yeah. At the end of the night, you made a total of $78.50. You sold a total of 87 hot dogs and sodas combined. You must report the number of hot dogs sold and the number of sodas sold. How many hot dogs were sold and how many sodas were sold? So if you want to figure out the amount of hot dogs and sodas, you're going to have to set up two equations. Whenever you have two unknowns, you need two equations to solve them out. So let's see if we can set this up. So let's see what the information is and what is useful here. So we've got each hot dog costs $1.50, so that's important. And then each soda costs 50 cents. So that's going to be important for the setup of our equation. At the end of the night, you made a total of $78.50. So notice that I've got 1, 2, 3 amounts of money. And then you sold a total of, it says you sold a total of 87 hot dogs and sodas combined. So that's important. It says you must report the number of hot dogs sold and the number of sodas sold. How many hot dogs are sold and how many sodas are sold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to associate the money together and then the total amount of hot dogs and sodas together with 87. So let's start out with saying what X and Y are. So the first thing you want to do is define your variables. A lot of times in these contextual problems, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to just write an equation out. But before you write the equation out, you want to write the variables in terms of their context. And a lot of times on these like EOCs and these different tests, you'll see these linear equations not be in terms of X and Y. They'll be in terms of whatever letter represents your item. So in this case, we're talking about hot dogs and sodas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use H for hot dogs. So let H, so down here for my definitions, I'm going to say let H equal number of hot dogs and then let S equal the number of sodas. And then from there, I'm going to set up equations in H and S. So the first thing we note is that each hot dog costs $1.50 and each soda costs 50 cents. So I'm going to write $1.50 goes with hot dogs. So whatever amount, the total amount that I've spent on hot dogs is going to be $1.50 times the number of hot dogs. Okay? Plus 50 cents times S. And the last thing I'm going to say is the amount, which was $78.50. And one thing to note here is that the lowest number that H and S can be is 0. You cannot have a negative hot dog amount. You're not going to sell negative hot dogs. No sane person is going to walk into the auditorium right before a basketball game and hand you out and say, here's a hot dog. I'm going to give you this hot dog and you owe me $1.50. That's not going to happen, okay? So you can't have negative hot dogs and negative sodas. Well, it can't happen unless somebody's that cuckoo. But
Call George, come to the office, please. Cold George, come to the office.
Okay, so the other thing that we're going to talk about is the number of hot dogs and sodas sold. So if H and S represents the number of hot dogs and sodas sold in that night, then H plus S represents the total. So H plus S is the total. And what did we say the total was? Well, if you take a look here, the total is 87. So H plus S equals 87. And so what we're going to do is we're going to solve this problem out. And I'm actually going to do this one by, yeah, I think I'm going to do it by elimination. So I'm actually going to multiply this top row by 2. I'm going to leave this bottom row. I'm going to multiply it by -2. And then I'm going to leave that bottom row as is. So if I multiply the entire top row by -2, I'm going to get -3h plus, or no, it's not plus, minus 1h minus 1s equals, and then negative 7850, let's see, 78 plus 78, that's going to be 160 minus 4, yeah, so 156, and then another dollar, so 157, yeah. And so I'm going to, it's going to be negative, so we're going to add across, and then we're going to solve for whatever variable is left. So if you take a look here, positive s and negative 1s is going to cancel, so that's why I multiplied it by -2. -2 times 50 cents, or 0.5, is going to be -1. So I'm left with, let's see, -2h. And then 157 minus 87. Well, if it was 167, it would just be 80, so it's going to be 70, so -70. And then divide both sides by -2, and you get h equals positive 35. And so once you have h, you can take it and plug it back in, and I'm just going to plug it into this second equation because it's really easy to solve for. So I've got 35 plus s equals 87. Minus 35 on both sides, so subtract 35 from both sides, and I get, what, 53 is s. So the number of sodas is 53, okay? And so let's make sure. It just wants to know how many hot dogs are sold and how many sodas are sold. So yeah, that's all we need to do. So this is the contextual problem, and this is a great test question. Just know that you only have a few minutes to solve it. So that was just an explanation along with kind of analyzing the problem. So hopefully that'll help you out with some of this information. So you guys take it easy. I will see you next time.